And I just logged in, Ryan, online. It sounds fine.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Hey, Councillor Kaufman. Oh, he's still muted.
Oh, that's what that meant. Talking without sound. Oh, okay. I'm still trying to learn the sign language, so thank you.
I am not an authority on that.
All right, well, I'm going to shut my microphone off while I go turn my microwave on and get some tea.
Joe
is now joining.
Who are the other two members that we're waiting for?
Councillor Morrow just logged in. You have yourself and Councillor Crowson, and Councillor Carlson, I believe, is the last one we're waiting on.
Okay, thank you.
Looks like we have everybody here. We'll just wait a couple more moments there, Councillor Carlson, until everyone's back in view of their cameras or their computer, and then we'll get started.
Sorry if I was late.
Excellent. I think we have everybody here. I will take the reins as the chair of this meeting until we do an election for a chair. And we'll start with a roll call, and then we're going to lead into the acknowledgement statement. Councillor Kaufman.
Present.
Councillor Crowson.
Here.
Councillor Carlson.
Present.
Councillor Morrow.
Yep.
Excellent. Also online, we have City Manager Dalton, City Clerk Hilford, City Solicitor Lowen, Communications Advisor Nick Cool. In the room, we have myself and Ms. Crisanti. For the acknowledgement statement, the City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people past, present, and future, while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationships to the land. The City of Lethbridge is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. I'm now going to call for the election or nominations for the position of chairman. Do we have any nominations for the position of chair?
You notice he said chairman, so I'm not eligible.
Motion to change the wording and nominate Councillor Crowson.
No, I'm already chair of Civic Works. I think somebody else should take the chair.
Okay.
I'll volunteer for that if nobody else wants.
I will nominate.
Councillor Kaufman.
That's got to be a first.
Are there any other nominations or volunteering?
Move that nomination cease.
Here, here.
Excellent. I think we'll declare Councillor Kaufman chair.
Woohoo!
I'll go on with the election of the vice chair, and then I'll hand it over to Chair Kaufman. Are there any nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Councillor Carlson before he nominates me.
I was looking at you and you couldn't see me staring, saying, are you going to take it? Unless anyone else wishes to, I have no problem serving as vice chair.
Excellent. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, seeing none. Councillor Carlson, you will be declared vice chair for the remainder of this calendar year, or term of council, I should say, for the governance SPC. I'll turn it over to Councillor Kaufman now as chair of this committee.
Thank you, Mr. Westerson. Thank you, everyone. Hard-fought battle, and I appreciate the support from all of you on that. Thank you very much. I was tense there for a while. If my camera goes off, it's because I'm split screening on my iPad. So I'm not leaving or going anywhere. It's just an issue of I have to call the agenda up through Agenda to Go. So the adoption of the agenda, are there any additions to the agenda? Hearing none, I will just go by. Oh, sorry, Councillor Carlson.
Just a question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. In other of our standing policy committees, I've recommended that any subcommittees that report to us become standing items, just so that we're aware of the work they're doing. It's really nothing more than we've lost the chair. Oh, there's the chair. It's really nothing more than a radar list type thing. So I believe our only reporting committee is our advocacy committee. And so they would have a standing item where if they have a meeting or minutes could be sent to, that way we're aware of what they're doing. So I'm just wondering if we can amend the agenda to include our advocacy committee that reports to us as a standing item. It doesn't mean they report at every meeting or have to, just that if anything, any of the work they're doing is sort of put in that slot, so we have a heads up.
Thank you. Would you like them as an agenda item specifically, or would you see that falls under, it's a problem with closing a screen. Would you see them as falling under inquiries and responses or updates, perhaps under updates, or are you actually wanting to see a line item saying advocacy committee?
If it was a line item, in this one, because we only have one, it may be less important, but in other committees where you have 10 committees reporting to you, it's always nice to have an aware come to this committee as a surprise. So as a standing item is what I would suggest. If there's nothing to report, nothing gets reported on, but if they've done work in between our meetings, it gives us an awareness of what they're doing.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Westerson, Mr. Sante, if you could make note of that then, as the agendas come forward for the rest of this term, if that could be identified as a specific item, that would be greatly appreciated. I don't believe that there's anything to report from that committee because we're not meeting until tomorrow or next week, I think. So there would certainly be something for the next meeting. But if that could be made available for the February meeting, that would be great. Anything else on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, seeing none, I'll just accept as consensus then that we move on. 4.1. Are you all still there? Have I lost you?
Still here.
Still there? Okay.
I'm not.
I'm sorry?
I said I'm not lost.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I once was lost.
4.1, status of initiatives, January 28th. Who's going to run us through that?
I can, Councillor Kaufman, Chair Kaufman.
Okay,
this is just a carryover at the last meeting of the Open and Effective Government Committee. It was a recommendation to Council, and Council subsequently supported to pass this running tally of items or initiatives that the former Open and Effective Government Committee had been working on through the term of 2017 through 2021, and the status and placement of those. It is very, very similar to the status of director resolutions you see bi-weekly on Council's consent agenda. and it is there for your tracking purposes, as well as administration to ensure that we follow the deadlines and timelines that are associated to each item, and if subsequently, if required, report back with a request for deferral.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Westerson. I noticed that most of these are behind schedule. Not a surprise, as we've been dealing with some other issues and changes to our governance structure. The one that jumps out at me, where the heck was it? It was about orientation. Where are we at on that one? And when do we see that coming forward?
Sure. Also on the call here is Bonnie, our City Clerk Helford. She can speak more directly to this, so I'll allow her to do that.
Thanks. Hi, Bonnie.
Hi. Yes, thanks for the question. We are in the midst of putting something together, the corporation with SMT and the city manager's office, and having it back to the governance committee probably in March to be adopted by council early April.
Okay, so we'll should not perhaps not at the next meeting, but the meeting following. Is that what I'm? Thank you. The other question I had, and I see that some of them are listed in our status list of status initiatives, policy review. We are very behind. I don't know that it's accomplishable over the next few months, but I'm wondering if there are some we could tackle.
Yeah, we had brought a few to OEG last year, and we had really good intentions of revising and bringing them back to OEG, and then we just got busy with the governance review and the structure and procedure bylaw, and now with the election. So we do have intentions of returning to OEG and OEG Governance Committee, SPC, and then council on a few of them. The ones like the orientation is a council policy, so it obviously has to come back. So yeah, there's a few that we do want to return to. I don't know, Craig, if you have anything that you'd like to add with regards to the review. I know it's a 4-year review, but with regards to resources and priorities.
Yeah, I would just add, we've had a number of conversations about policy reviews, both council policy and administration policy. And when you're busy, the first thing you tend to not do is review policy. And we're at that point again. And more than 3 years into this council mandate, so for us, administration policies are down at the bottom of the list now, just given the volume of work that we have. And I'll talk about performance management in a bit. And I think the time to really focus on this is as soon as the term starts with a clear timeline and deliverables, because my sense is right now we're up to our eyeballs and alligators, and we'd be better focused on other priorities. But that's just my 2 cents.
And thanks for that, Craig and Bonnie. I do appreciate that. I understand completely. I'm just a little concerned because last term, we said the exact same thing. This must be out of the gate and we must get on it. And now it's the end of the term and we have not even, well, we're slightly out of the gate. So anyways, I just wanted it as a heads up. So thank you.
Thank you. Because most, if not all of this comes from the work that we had actually been doing on open and effective government, and Councillor Croson and Councillor Carlson and I have just sort of shifted over from that. Councillor Morrow, you're the new one here then to this list. Is there anything on this list that jumps out at you as being, I'd like to see this, this committee, the Standing Policy Committee, look at it sooner rather than later? Are there things in the list that strike you as being requirements ASAP?
Jeff, you asking me specifically?
Yeah, I'm asking you. Yes, Councillors Croson and Carlson and I have served in Open Effective Government Committee, so we are familiar with the list because we've been looking at this for quite some time. You're not, you haven't been on, you weren't on OEG, so I'm just asking if there's something on the list that has jumped out at you.
No, it's all good. I'm good to go ahead, as is.
Okay, thank you. That being the case, would it, I'm just trying to figure out with the time that we have left in this term. Obviously, orientation has to be a priority in preparation for the next group coming in November. Are there 3 or 4 things on here that are manageable between now and the end of this term that we could tackle? Because as Councillor Carlson identified, I don't think we can get to all of them. Has anybody prioritized this with an administrative perspective, and then we can add the council perspective to it as well if there's something that we see on there, a couple things that we'd like to make sure are done as well before the end of the term?
We are in the process, Councillor Kaufman, of trying to prioritize across all SPCs and all direction that's been given by council. We're not at a point yet where we could, maybe the next meeting, we could make some recommendations. We're above 270 some discrete items right now that we're working through to see what's actually deliverable. So if it would be okay with the committee, we could commit to come back at the next meeting with some recommendations on that.
Members of the committee, do I hear anybody opposed to that or in disagreement with that?
No, it makes sense to cut off what we can cut off.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Trying to do things with my phone now too. So did we have, so item 4.1, I've got a motion moved by Councillor Morrow, status of initiatives, that the Governance Standing Policy Committee received the January 28th, 2021 status of initiatives as information. Any disagreement with that motion? Okay. We'll move on then to 5.1 with the understanding that that will come back to us at the next meeting with a little bit more priority to it, established to it. 5.1, Governance Standing Policy Committee orientation. Mr. Westerson, I believe this is you.
It is, and I'll keep this brief, much like I did with the Cultural and Social SPC last week. I think each of you have heard this at least once or twice already. And then the attachment that was there sums it up quite well to this. And Councillor Carlson spoke up about a reporting structure already. The Advocacy Advisory Committee reports up to this Standing Policy Committee, and you subsequently report up to City Council. If there are any particular questions, we are open for those questions. I will not try to recreate the wheel though on this one.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Croson.
Mine's not a question, but mine is a suggestion that maybe we want to follow up on. We're the last SPC to come on board, so every SPC has had one meeting up till now. Mostly orientation like this. Next month, the SPCs will start work. But I just know at council and from talking to some of our colleagues, there may be questions as we get into this now, right? We passed it when it was a theory, now we're starting to use it. So maybe we send around, and perhaps we'll ask the chair to send around just an email to our colleagues going, as you've tried this for a month, as you get into it next month, are there questions that you have so that we can, as governance, be aware of that, provide support as needed, and make adjustments where needed, that sort of thing, just so we can check in as we're moving ahead so that people don't get.
That's, I think, an excellent suggestion.
Question?
Yeah, Councillor Carlson.
I agree. Excellent suggestion to see what hiccups or what things are working well, what aren't. This may be a bit early to ask, maybe after the next month's meeting. Most of them have been fairly brief. Look at it. But I do agree that some feedback would be helpful. It is all new.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk or Mr. Westerson, if somebody could just send me the emails. Are you suggesting Councillor Croson, then I just send it to the chairs, or should I send it to all members of council?
I would recommend just sending it to all members of council, just to, again, give them a chance to see how it's working. And it doesn't have to be immediate. It might be better, after the February when everybody's had a chance to actually have 2 meetings. But I just don't want people to for us to get so far in and not realize that there's concerns or questions, and just, you know, just to try to make this as smooth a transition for people as possible. Because as Councillor Carlson said, this is new. We passed it, like I said, in theory. In practice, I want to know how it's working. I think we all do.
Okay, then I don't need the list of who's on council, because I think I've got that one pretty much down pat. So thank you. Okay, I can send that out, absolutely. Mr. Westerson, is there anything in specific? Actually, I should do this first. Any other questions on the orientation that's in front of you? The one thing I would offer as a heads up is we've eliminated the city manager search committee, which is awesome. I think we don't have to worry about that for many, many years, which is great. However, we had sort of transitioned into theoretically a support group for the CAO. This is maybe a question for all of council. Do we want to sort of delegate that conversation between council and the CAO on things that are making him happy, things that are maybe disappointing him, things that make him go, to mayor, deputy mayor, and acting mayor? Or would governance committee still be that group that he would come to? Or should we look at establishing just an ad hocery of 3 or 4 members of council? I think there needs to be a defined connection point for the CAO to, you know, a place that he can go if I just need to breathe, I need some advice, I need to get this off my chest, can you help me with that type of thing? Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, Councillor Huffman. Interesting suggestion, good suggestion. One of the things I've struggled with in my time on council is the connection between the city manager and council and vice versa, especially in things such as the annual reviews, etc. Because we sort of slot it to the agenda review committee, they change every 6 months and things sometimes get lost or forgotten. And so maybe a different committee that is in place with some continuum would be better, or maybe just enshrining in our procedure manual with dates and timelines of when certain things have to be accomplished, so that whether it's a agenda review or an ad hoc or another committee, follows it completely. I hate the fact that often we get to the end of term and go, oh crap, we forgot these very important things that we are legislated to do. So I think a separate committee may be appropriate because it has some continuity. So I like the suggestion.
Just a generalistic reminder here, councillors and members of the committee. Part of the mandate for this governance SPC, well, is not different necessarily from this conversation, is the city manager recruitment, formerly part of that committee, as well as the coordination of the annual city manager performance review. Just a general reminder, if those are duties you wish to keep as a standing policy committee, or you wish to delegate down to a different body.
So it sounds like the decision is made for us. It's us.
Yes, it's us. Yay, that's good.
Okay, which is perfect then, because then that opportunity is available to the city manager. Obviously, as you know, Craig, you are more than able to reach out to any of us at any time and say, I just want to have a bit of chat about something. But if we want to have the ability to provide sort of the formal opportunity as well, it can be done through this standing policy committee. We can do it either as an agenda item, or we can, of course, we have the opportunity at the end of this agenda, I believe, to move to closed session if we need to have a conversation of that matter as well. So thank you, Mr. Westerson, for reminding us of that. And are you okay with that, Mr. Dalton?
Absolutely. I would really welcome the opportunity to deal with this committee and sort of a consistent slate of councillors. I think that would be great, because I do struggle as well, trying, especially in times like this, trying to plug in with 9 councillors and trying to get issues on the table that I think it's important to discuss, and council doesn't seem to be the right forum for that either necessarily. because there's enough at council, so I would really welcome that.
Okay, thank you. I'm hearing you say you like the four of us best. I don't know if it will reflect that, but I really appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Anything? Yes, Councillor Carlson.
Thank you. It kind of triggers something in me. We have the status of initiatives, I think it's called, but perhaps there needs to be something, an addendum to that, similar to the council's radar list, or a list of critical dates. If we had that as part of the agenda, constantly a reminder that, okay, in August, this needs to be accomplished, so we better get on it. Things like that. So I don't know what you'd call it, a radar list or critical dates.
Councillor Carlson,
Yep.
Definitely something that we can do as part of the agenda review committee for each of these SPCs. So each SPC has its own agenda review committee. It consists of the chair, the clerk of the meeting, and the appropriate member of senior management, be it a director or the city manager in this case. And that those tasks are already undertaken for you, planning those out and keeping track of that. And that would just be a continued administrative practice to assist you through that. That agenda review committee then would be the point in which a constant reminder, ensure that it gets placed on an appropriate agenda for this body to review.
Awesome. I'm glad it's being taken care of for us. I do appreciate that. But I'm just wondering if having it on our agenda or in front of us every month is not more appropriate than knowing that administration is taking care of it for us. It helps me to know, oh God, we've got something coming up in August. We should be thinking about that. So
we have something coming up in May. It's the annual review for the city manager, but that requires some preparation. It requires herding cats and getting all members of council to respond to some sort of document or survey for input to put together to present to the city manager. So there does need to be this codified timeline put in place. And I think what you're looking for, Councillor Carlson, is that type of radar list that appears at every committee meeting with this is coming up, this is coming up, this is coming up, that just sort of stays. It's like a Rolodex of anniversary information.
100% what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Okay. Is it possible, Mr. Westerson, to accommodate that then somewhere in our agenda, our monthly agenda?
Anything is doable. I think Bonnie has something to jump in here with as well before we get too much further. You bet.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I was just going to reiterate what Mr. Westerson has said, is that we do keep an agenda of future items, and I can share with you the next couple of months what's on your radar list. I'll just do that verbally, and just so you know that we do have an agenda of a radar list. So for February, we have the boards, committees, commissions, public member appointments. We have a few resignations and vacancies. There's probably about 5 boards that we'd want the governance committee to take a look at before it goes to council. We have the IT, fiscal, and operational performance review recommendation update. We have heart of our city governance review report and implementation plan. And then we're going to have the monthly update on the operational review implementation plan and council's work plan monthly update coming to the governance review as well. So there might be some more things coming for February. For March, we'll have, like I mentioned, the 2021 council orientation and transition plan and the policy. And again, the work plan and the operational review. So yeah, there's things being populated, and we're happy to share that with the committee or with the chair at agenda review, however you like that.
Okay,
that would be
Councillor
awesome.
Carlson, that's what you're looking for?
That's exactly what Bonnie just listed. I think it's important that the committee knows that ongoing, so that we know what our schedules are going to be and what we'll be focused on. And so we're not saying, well, let's add 40 more things to the upcoming agenda without knowing, oh, there's already 40 more things coming. So that would be very helpful to know that at each meeting. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I would just like to mention that every committee has a radar list like this, and with items populated, that's reviewed with the respective director, city manager, and the chair as well.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, anything else on the orientation? Anything that's, anything in the document that members of the committee are curious about? Questions? Okay, seeing none, got a motion from Councillor Crowson. Governance Standing Policy Committee orientation, that the Governance Standing Policy Committee orientation be accepted as information, and further that the chair communicate with all members of council to request feedback on the Standing Policy Committee process to date.
Sorry, could I get that one more time?
And further be resolved that the chair communicate with members of council for feedback on the Standing Policy Committee structure to date. It's just basically ensuring that we know that I'm supposed to be reaching out to members of council, asking for feedback on the SPC's SPC process. Yeah, Standing Policy Committee. Excellent. Thank you. Any objection to that? Yeah.
Just, is it structure or function, or I don't know.
Well, partly the implementation.
Yeah. I think we know the idea.
Councillor Crowson, this is your motion. Did you have a different word in there?
No, like I said, it's how things are going, really. So as long as the question is asked about, yeah, I think that's good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, anything further on this? I'll accept this motion by consensus then. Thank you very much. Item 5.2, procedure and public participation review.
Me again. I will try to keep this, again, a fairly short and sweet presentation. It's been the same comments across all the other SPCs. Each of your standing policy committees has a public participation component to it. That once the agenda is published, much like council, 7 days in advance of the meeting, a link is open on the city website under each of the standing policy committees to submit a form as it relates to any item on your agenda or any standing policy committee agenda. That form is electronic, would be completed by the submitter or the member of the public and received by the clerk's office, and it would be a component of that upcoming meeting or whatever meeting it was speaking to. This process follows the same process that is employed for City Council's public hearings, and no change outside of that. And it is the one actually that is in place right now for the Community Safety Standing Policy Committee on February 11th for the
is now exiting.
Discussion on the masking bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Crowson.
So we understand that the public, of course, can come forward to us at any one of these SPCs. But again, same thing with this going forward is, does the public actually know that, right? How is it working? Do we have anywhere in our database a list of what we would call the usual subjects, you know, people who normally would present to council, that we can send them this sort of information going, you know, this is what each SPC is responsible for. We, of course, would love presentations at these, just, you know, to do a job of sending things out to maybe the neighborhood groups, to some of the, you know, groups that are in development, etc. Just some of those groups. Is there a way of doing that can be done? Is it even possible, or am I trying a pie in the sky idea here? And if it can be done, do my colleagues think we should do something like that?
Let's start with the can be done. Mr. Westerson or Ms. Hilford?
Without great effort. I'm not saying like create this from.
We've had numerous phone calls and emails already from members of the public, and that we have outlined the exact process for them already, and we've had some interest already in a few of the different standing policy committee meetings where we've just stood up that form in the last few days on the website, and we are looking to stand up a public participation kind of description on lethbridge.ca that will be pushed out through various modes of communication, through our communications colleagues as well. I'll defer now the rest to Ms. Hilford. I think she had unmuted herself and got ready to speak there for a moment.
Yeah, I was going to say we're happy to speak to any group or communicate to any group that would be interested in knowing the process. If council has any such groups that they think that we should speak to, if they can pass them on, and we're happy to communicate with them about the process.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Crowson?
Yes, I mean, it's as much as we can get it out there, right? I mean, it always takes about 3, 4, 5, 20 times letting people know changes for people to understand, how the changes will affect them. Because the first time they heard that we changed the way we're doing committees, they probably don't think it has any effect on them. And so I think we're just going to have to continually communicate some of this stuff. And it sounds like there is a great plan for getting it out there, and we'll see how it rolls out.
If I can add, we did discuss this at SMT this morning, and I asked everybody to take every opportunity to help educate, to speak to the value of this governance model, and have dealt with a couple of organizations already that are happy to have somebody come and talk to them about these changes and how it impacts them. And I think just communications periodically over the next number of months too, we should be going out and reminding people of why this change was made, and how it enhances the opportunities or provides more opportunity for the public to engage with council. So we're doing our bit as well.
Thank you. Actually, one of the things someone actually, and it is one of our usual suspects who attends a lot of council meetings, the comment that was made to me was, I don't have to sit through 6 other presentations necessarily before it's my turn to speak. So I think the SPC process should also be identified as being a little more focused and allows us to a little bit more flexibility in how we deal with things as opposed to the structure, of course, of a council meeting. Second part of your question, Councillor Crowson, was if your colleagues have names that or groups that we would like to identify. Is that correct?
Well, I guess my question was just to start the conversation about how we're going to, inform the public, right? That was really my question, was to get us down that conversation. Because as we talked, even with our colleagues, this is a major change and we just want to communicate. So the idea was to see if there's ideas about how we can do it. Sounds like administration certainly has been giving this a lot of thought, and just any way we can make this as easy as possible for the public so that, 1, they know this is the change, 2, they know which SPC, and 3, they always know we want to hear from them.
Okay, and as long as it's clearly communicated as to which SPC hears what, that would be good. Councillor, I did text Councillor Morrow because we all heard him leave the meeting. His phone died, and he's not anywhere near to charge it, but he's on his way home. He said it'd take about 10 minutes, so I've advised him to call back when he gets home. Councillor Carlson, did you have anything to add on that?
Nothing concrete. I guess I appreciate that SMT is talking about ways to spread the word and interact. I think a lot of it is going to, unfortunately, have to be more reactive rather than proactive. Folks, I don't know how you'd send out interesting material to everyone in the community to say, here's governance standing policy committees and how they work.
Sorry, why is governance not interesting? I'm
yeah, you just said something interesting. I don't know what you're talking about.
True. But as people try and communicate or get in front of council and they're directed to subcommittees, I think that learning process will unfold throughout. But if someone has better proactive means, I'm all in favor.
Okay, thank you. On the
I think the city manager has his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Craig, missed that. My face is over top of your hand there. That's why. There we go.
Better than your hand over top of my face, I think. I was just going to add to Councillor Carlson's comment. We one of the ways that we're trying to The comms team's done a great job in putting together a corporate comms strategy for 2021, and one of the key thrusts there is stories. So nobody wants to hear boring, nauseating, bureaucratic stuff in the public, but stories do make a difference. And so, one of the things that we could do with this is take one of those groups, for example, the group that Councillor Kaufman mentioned that recognized or said, hey, this won't take 4 hours out of my day now, it's only an hour. And so somebody who has an early interaction with one of these standing policy committees, we can reach out to and say, would you like to share your story? So there are some ways to make it a little more likely that the public would read. So that will be part of our comms plan to support this as well.
Excellent. That's good. Thank you. Okay. On the orientation on the public participation attachment 1 that's included in our package, point 5, written submissions received at the meeting will be circulated to the committee members. Do they automatically become part of the agenda or part of the minutes then as well? I know we've had this conversation about amending agendas after the fact when submissions have been done. Do documents that get submitted at the meeting get attached to the minutes, or do we go back and amend the agenda to add them to that?
Generally, they would form part of the corporate record as the agenda, and so we should be revising the agenda to include those.
Yeah,
so
definitely, in a couple of examples, I'll just echo Bonnie's comments there, and down to the nuts and bolts process of what we've done for council over the last several years. Is when something's received at a meeting and it's unanimously adopted or brought forward by the body, it is then gone back and added to that agenda and part of that record, and is then in perpetuity found on the agenda online component of Lethbridge.ca in there. So when you go back and you view the meeting minute or the video per se, I guess, you'd click on that item and you'd still see that new addition, and it would be noted in the minutes that was received to the corporate record at that time.
Okay, thank you. Second question then on this SPC. Of course, part of the conversation that council has had leading up to the creation of the SPCs was about public participation actually on the committee. We have the ability to appoint people or to appoint people, yes, to the SPC from the public. Is there any thought by members of the committee for 1 or 2 public appointments to this committee? Councillor Carlson?
Thanks for that, Mr. Chair. What would the purpose of public appointments to this committee be?
Again, it would be like any of the SPCs. It provides an outside, a citizen perspective. This comes back to the days back in the mid-90s when we had the SPC structure, and I chaired Transportation, Utility, and the Environment, and it was comprised of actually mostly members of the public and 2 of us from City Council, and it was a conversation about the policy of those 3 specific or those 3 areas, and the direction then that would be the organization be moving in. But it was feedback, it was information coming from the public in terms of those particular areas.
My gut feeling is that I and this is shooting from the hip. It's the first I've contemplated. My gut feeling is that we should be soliciting information and good discussion from the community and community members, but perhaps not having them as members of the committee. That's just my first blush, but I'm open to discussion.
Okay, Councillor Crowson.
Like Councillor Carlson, I'm giving this sort of my first thought now, but I'd like to get us to have our feet under us a little bit better and further along before we would entertain something like that, if we do entertain something like that, just to make sure that we really have the structure of the committee understood, because I think change has to be done in manageable bites. So maybe a discussion to be had, later in the year or in next term. But right now, I think there's enough change within council without adding the public to the SPC right now.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Anything else then on that? Okay, I have a motion then from Councillor Carlson, Procedure and Public Participation Review, that the Governance Standing Policy Committee accept the Procedure and Public Participation Review as information.
So moved. Any further questions or discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote. Or are we just doing consensus?
I think we're just doing by consensus.
Please support consensus.
I see no discontent, so we'll move on. 5.3, performance excellence reporting to council. This is verbal. Who is taking this one?
I've got this one, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
It actually ties into a number of previous discussions that have already taken place here today around the state of the policy review, where it's at, how the SPCs are provided with information on their future work plan, if you will. What I'd like to do is try and make the conversation around performance management between administration and council a little more dynamic. And I was hoping that this committee would be a natural place for that more dynamic conversation to occur. So at the moment, and if you were to fast forward or reverse back to the start of your mandate and take the council strategic plan as an example, would this be the place for administration to report out regularly on progress on the council strategic plan and on any other items that council has assigned to administration to work on?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm struggling because I find there's a lack of opportunity to have meaningful engagement with council about where we are and how we're doing. And when I mentioned earlier, we had literally over 270 discrete tasks right now that we've signed up for to deliver under this action plan, that strategy, this unique sort of direction from council. And to be frank, we don't know where we are. And council doesn't seem to be the place to have those conversations. And so I was hopeful that and I don't think we'll get there before the end of this term, but ideally we'll have a corporate work plan that we're responsible to council for delivering on. And I'd like us to be better able to tell our story as well. So I was just hopeful that this would be the committee to do that, and that would not get in the way of, for example, reporting progress on the community wellbeing and safety strategy or the affordable housing strategy or action plan. Those individual discrete plans will probably align with different SPCs, but in the whole, when a conversation around performance happens, I was hoping this would be the place to have that conversation. It was just looking for the committee's consideration and feedback on that.
Thank you. Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Dalton. I would wholeheartedly support that. I think one of the concerns I always had with the former committee structure and even current is that there could be fragmentation and siloing without a lot of oversight over the entire corporation. So I love the fact that this could be, it is governance. It is kind of the place where good oversight could occur and could reduce that fragmentation. So I support that.
Okay, Councillor Crowson, you had an audible earlier.
Yes, I think this is the perfect place for it because, I mean, governance doesn't work unless you have feedback on whether the governance is working. So, I think it's a natural fit with what this subcommittee, Standing Policy Committee, is supposed to do. And I think it's something that we've been working towards, is having some of these performance evaluation or performance measurements. And so, yes, I would recommend ours as the SPC to be the home for this.
Okay. Did you raise your hand again, Councillor Carlson?
I did, but I would like to hear your thoughts before I jump in for another question.
So I'm kind of two minds of this. I see what it is that you're looking for, Craig, certainly in terms of the place to bring it. Part of going to the SPCs is that it does actually do the work of council in a different way, which means our council meetings, theoretically, should actually have a greater opportunity for some of these more cerebral conversations, to be able to look at the picture in a much more holistic manner, and hopefully with greater time and capacity to do that if the SPCs are doing a lot of this other work. So there's a part of me that thinks that maybe this does create the opportunity to do some of this, not necessarily all of it, but some of this actually with council as a whole, so that everybody is up to speed. If it's coming to a subcommittee, then it's incumbent upon us to report back to council as to what's happening, versus you speaking to council as a whole to bring things up to speed. So am I missing nuance in what you're saying? Or I wouldn't mind your feedback on that.
Yeah, no, I think I think I'm seeing things the same way. I think the coming to the governance SPC as sort of the tip of the spear for the performance management conversation would not, in my mind, preclude council from spending more time on these issues. In fact, I think getting 4 councillors to dig in a little deeper, to ask more probing questions, to be more aware of what our current state of performance was across a range of council assigned topics would be great. And I think the report going from the SPC to council could highlight maybe particular areas that their council colleagues might want to focus on, and it might make that broader conversation with council a little more meaningful. And the other thing I believe is that essentially doing this twice, which is what most items that go to any item that goes to an SPC that goes to council gives you that other opportunity to shine a light on it. This is another opportunity for the public to see us as a corporation focusing on performance management, reporting, measurement. And I think, you know, and frankly, it's a bit of a forcing function, because I think we need a little bit of a push from council, and that's not from regular council.
Is now joining.
Okay, welcome back, Councillor Morrow.
Sorry about that.
No.
My phone died and it took me a while to get home.
Nope, not a problem. It's happened to all of us. Okay, thank you, Craig. Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Joe, just to catch you up, we're on item 5.3. Mr. Dalton is giving an update or some thoughts on the performance excellence and reporting, and thinking that I keep wanting to call us OEG, governance committee should be or could be the place for that, and so we're just kind of throwing our thoughts in. Craig, my question was, how would you see this functioning? Would it be a standing item at each meeting? I'm just trying to wrap my brain around how it would go, or is it a quarterly, or how do you envision it?
For if we were to do this now, for the next 10 months, I would see us taking the council 12-month plan and the KPMG operational review implementation plan, which are our main priorities at the moment, that we're reporting to council on monthly, not in a very dynamic way, and that's a two-way street. I'm not putting that at the feet of council. So for the near term, it would be those 2 documents coming to this committee. And I think we'd probably feel, I would hope there'd be a little more time at SPC, at governance SPC, to maybe break out and highlight some of those areas that we think would be of more interest to council. And so that's how I would see the next 10 months. But for a new council, for example, once that council strategic plan is complete, once the corporate work plan is complete in response to that, then I think essentially we'd have a contract between administration and this committee as to what our priorities were fiscal year by fiscal year. And that's why I think the conversation about policy review earlier is a great example. And this goes right back to one of KPMG's overarching recommendations or observations, that we do not have a formal performance management framework in place. And when you don't have that framework in place, which starts with clear goals and objectives, so out of the 270 things on our plate right now, which are the ones council really cares about? And we're not entirely guessing at that. We can work our way through that, but ideally, at the start of a term, we'd nail that down and we'd start 2022 with very clear marching orders. These are the 17, 24, 36 things, and the policy review is one of them, and you're going to complete 35% in year one. And we'd be reporting on that stuff monthly. Because right now it's amazing. Like if we had $1 million prize for anybody in administration who could list all of the strategies and action plans currently underway, nobody would claim that prize. Like we can't even get our arms around the totality of work that's going on, let alone prioritize and then report progress and get direction back. So I think for the first 10 months, it would be baby steps and focus on KPMG and council's 12-month plan, but building towards, for 2022, a more sort of robust, mature approach. And then also, and we're doing work on this now, as we go forward, start to talk about a dashboard that answers the question, are we doing a good job? So what things does council want to know to understand whether they and administration, we collectively, are doing a good job? What KPIs do we want to measure at the council level? I would see that ultimately becoming part of this too.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. It sort of makes it a little clearer in my head. I'll be a bit of a devil's advocate, or just ask for your input on this. In name and mandate, I believe governance it does fit with what you're proposing. So it would be at this committee. However, in structure and membership, which is it called? Economic SPC has full council as membership and could also provide that avenue. Is it your gut that it's better with a smaller group of councillors rather than committee of the whole? Just like your thoughts on that.
Yes, I do think it would be better with a small group of councillors, but obviously economic SPC is also an option. My experience typically is performance management is not sexy to all people. It's like governance, and oftentimes if you go before a large group, you don't get that dynamic exchange, and you don't get with a smaller group, folks can maybe concentrate, be a little more thoughtful about it, and then take to their colleagues' thoughts and ideas. Doesn't take them out of the conversation, but my experience is you get a bit of a richer conversation. We're happy to go wherever council wants to go.
And thank you. Just for my final two bits, Mr. Chairman, I think, as I said, I think it fits with the name and mandate of this committee. And as long as we make our colleagues aware that this is happening and this is where that will sit, they have full rights to log in and if not participate, at least listen and enjoy. So it could be accomplished here as well. So thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Morrow, thank you as well, Councillor Carlson, for updating Councillor Morrow as to where we were in the agenda. I was remiss of that. You're a good vice chair. You're doing all the work. I appreciate that. Councillor Morrow, did you have any questions on this particular issue as well, or if there's something on 5.2?
Yeah, actually, just something that Craig has said, not only now, but I've heard the city manager say this a few times, and I'm a little concerned, and maybe I'd like to ask the city manager, Mr. Manager, you stated several times that we have a lot on the go and that you obviously don't have the manpower to do the work. You've identified that, you've mentioned that several times. So can I just ask, why is that happening? Is it council bringing extra work to your team? Is it like, what is it? Is it the public that's, requiring more of staff's time? Because I've never really heard this as a problem expressed as you have expressed it. And so to me, that's the concern. What is causing all the work? Like, what are we doing to create all this extra work, and who's creating it? And To me, that's the root of the problem. So how do we address that? And maybe can you comment on that, please?
Certainly, and thanks for the question. And I will go back again to the KPMG operational review phase 1 report and this notion that we don't have a formal performance management framework in place. And what that means is we cannot push pause or stop on any given day and say, okay, what is demand? How many tasks have we had come in? How many things are we on the hook to deliver versus what is supply? We don't have a process for establishing priorities, assigning resources to those priorities, reporting on progress, measuring. So it's a bit chaotic, and I'm shocked that nobody's raised it before, and it's not uncommon. If you're an organization without a formal performance management framework in place, and notwithstanding there's 80 some or 90 some recommendations at a KPMG right now to this point in time, to me that's the biggest one. So it's not that anybody or any one group is doing anything wrong per se, it's that we're not managing our business well. So I'm not in a position today really to say to council, and you know, a good example was the this recent motion put forth by Councillor Miyashiro for council to allocate $500,000 to additional rent supplements. And Councillor Carlson asked, well, how long does it take to do that? Well, I don't know, but I can't even give a reasoned judgment to say, well, based on our current priorities, we'd have to stop this or delay that because it takes 8 weeks to produce that or develop that program. So it's not, it's the way we do business here. We just keep taking things in without any real mechanism internally to say, do we have the capacity? Where does this fit in terms of priorities? What needs to stop? What needs to shift? We then need to take that back to council and be able to say, here are the consequences of doing this. So this is a systems thing. It's not about people. And at the end of the day, what makes this another difficulty that emerges out of this is city staffing, and it's that service intensity level. We can't have an informed conversation about is our staff too big, too small, without having a clear understanding of what is it as an organization we're expected to deliver. And so the solution to this is to get to the point where we've got that process in place, where we have clearly established priorities, we've assigned resources, we know what's left, or if we don't have enough, we have to phase and sequence things. And then as new ideas come in or new direction comes in from council, we're able to say, because we can do anything, yes, we can do that. Here's the impact. Here's what would have to shift. Here's how long that would take. And we're just nowhere near being able to do that. I keep getting surprised every week when I learn about new strategic plans we've committed to 3, 5, 7 years ago. And that's great, but it's like writing checks your body can't cash, because we keep agreeing to do all this stuff without any reckoning, without any process of saying, okay, are we capable of this? Can we actually accomplish what we're being assigned to accomplish? So in the absence of that, what we do is listen very closely to council and see what they want next. What's the next deliverable? And that's really no way to run an operation. So it's all fixable, but we've got to respond to that KPMG operational review recommendation, and we're doing that work now.
Thanks for that, Mr. Manager. I appreciate that. Maybe you shouldn't listen to council as much as you do, because maybe that's part of the problem. Just joking. I like the example that you gave about Councillor Miyashiro's resolution, and I'm sure that we've all done that at council meetings. So while I was listening to you, I was thinking, and I'm going to go back, and I know some may not want to hear this. I'm going to go back to the George Cuff report. And the one thing that the George Cuff report that I remember, and I thought was one of the best things, even though it was a very simple thing, was the creation of the CIC meetings. We have now terminated those. We don't have those anymore. So would it not be something that you've just described, rather than being at a council meeting where there's a resolution where we have to vote on something, because also from the Cuff report, we were told that we are one of the municipalities that just never, ever postpones, or at that time was called table, We never do that. Doesn't matter if we get a 300-page document on Thursday or a 5-page document on Thursday. We'll vote on it on Monday. And so the CIC, I thought, was an opportunity for stuff like that to take place. So after listening to what you said, would it not be a good thing to do where whoever brings something to you, whether it's council, whether it's whatever, all this extra work and all these different paths that your staff is chasing, would it not be better that we have some sort of format where we discuss that prior to it going to a council meeting, so that you can be frank just like you were right now? Because I thought what you said makes a lot of sense, and I agree with you. But yet, we as council, we want to move our things forward, and so we'll bring something to council resolution, and boom, before you know it, there it is. And I don't even know if we've even discussed with you or your team on the work involved. So can we create something similar to a CIC where maybe we can do exactly what you've talked about, where we bounce things off of you first, and you can tell us, like, hey guys, that's not a priority. Because to be honest with you, yeah, council has priorities, but I believe that you guys, your priorities should probably come maybe before ours. So can you comment on that, or do you have a thought on that?
I might just ask, maybe the committee wants to comment on the SPCs versus CIC, because I see these SPCs as a really good opportunity to do that.
Yeah, Councillor Croson.
I was actually just going to reiterate that. I think that's the purpose of these, is that administration does bring things to the SPC, bounces ideas off. We talk about things we have planned, etc. And then they either go back to administration or they go to a committee, like one of the committees. But that's the purpose of these. These are supposed to be places where you bring a half-baked idea and you say, I've got this idea. Is it any possibility at all? Is it dumb? Is it good? And things get discussed. So these are supposed to be the places for those sorts of discussions, and I'm hoping we'll move towards that.
Okay, thanks for that. I understand that. I guess I see it different because there's only 4 members of council instead of 9. That's the biggest problem I have. 4 members of council are deciding whether, what to do with whatever it is that's been placed in front of them. But I don't know. I just wanted to just ask, City Manager, thanks for your answers.
Can I add to my answer then? Sorry. May I add to my answer?
Yep.
Anything we do, we don't get to decide. Anything we do eventually has to be recommended to council, either in the positive or the negative. Council gets final decision on everything.
Oh, I understand that. I just see duplication of work then. I think that's part of the problem. But that's okay. That's a different discussion. City Manager answered my question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Moore. Yeah, there are, you and I have the experience of going through the SPC process before, and the transition from SPCs to well, I'll just call it sort of a general governance model that the city moved to after the SPCs, and then the creation of the CIC, or the recommendation to create the CIC, really is the time element of governance. Good governance requires time, and that was George Cuff's recommendation: is take the time, slow down. You don't have to be doing things so quickly. And there were a number of reasons. You understand the politics and the number of reasons behind that recommendation. So the transition to SPCs now is providing us with that time. The missing component, and I'm surprised that George Cuff didn't pick up on it because it's not his recommendation, is exactly what the city manager was saying. Is the other side of time is what does staff have the ability to do? Councillor Miyashiro's motion was definitely reactionary, because there's the immediate need. We're operating in COVID, so there are a number of variables that don't necessarily permit us to slow down. But as the city manager identified, you can't provide a real answer to, can we do that? But you've got the administrative response coming from the CAO's office of, if this is what council wants, we will make it happen. So I think I see what you're saying about the potential for duplication, Councillor Morrow. I think the opportunity comes that instead of something going to council and us just putting up our hands and doing it, the SPC process provides that opportunity for second sober thought. You know, great idea, we don't have the capacity to do it, or great idea, we can take this forward and explore it. So it comes to council. I was going to say fully baked. That doesn't always sound good. It comes to council with more of a fulsome overlay, that you've got the four that are saying, you know what, this actually it's a fairly good idea that we can take forward, and you've got the CAO saying, yeah, we've got the capacity to deal with it. So the SPCs, I think, give us an opportunity to go a little bit deeper. And I do recognize, absolutely, it's 4 members of council, not the entirety of council, but that's the way we've kind of set ourselves up to do the work, so that when it comes to council, we can have a better conversation. Go ahead. Sorry, were you going to add something, Councillor Morrow?
No, I'm just listening to you. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Councillor Carlson has just texted saying that he's had to leave. He's got an important meeting, so he's off my Christmas list of something more important than governance. Okay, just make a note there. Anything else on this particular issue? Thank you, Councillor Morrow. That good question on that. Thank you. Anything else on this particular issue? No. Okay. Hearing none. Got a motion from Councillor Morrow, performance excellence and reporting to council. 5.3, that the Governance Standing Policy Committee accept the verbal report on performance excellence and reporting to council as information. Consensus agreement. Excellent. Is there anything else that we missed? There was nothing else added to the agenda. Mr. Westerson?
Nope, nothing.
Okay. One final opportunity, members of the committee, is there anything you wanted to raise? Seeing nothing.
Sorry,
oh,
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I just want to apologize again for my phone dying on me and me not having anything to hook anything up and charge it up until I got home. So sorry about that.
No, not a problem at all. It's the new world we're operating in. My iPad is down to 6% because I failed to charge it for this meeting. So it happens to all of us. Not a problem at all, Councillor Morrow. Hearing nothing, I've got a motion from Councillor Crowson that we do now adjourn the Governance Standing Policy Committee meeting until Thursday, February 25th, 2021. And hearing no objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Maybe Ryan and Bonnie, and I guess Craig, when does the agenda committee meet for this particular SPC?
Usually it would be the week before on the Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yep.
The agenda items are due on the Monday, so then we meet the next day or the day after, and then it's published a week before. So
we'd be meeting about the 17th or 16th of February.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll double check with yourself and the city manager and get a time frame assigned in an email and then a calendar invite, so you have it for the next little while stuck up for you.
Okay, thank you. That'd be greatly appreciated if we can get that into my calendar.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate all the work that goes into it. Thank you, Chloe, as well. Thank you.